This was never just one man. Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but the scandal he left behind is very much alive. They told us the story was over. They told us justice had been served. They told us this was just one wealthy predator who took his own life. That was a lie. Because Epstein didn't rise alone. He didn't traffic minors alone. And he didn't protect himself alone. This case pulls back the curtain on power, celebrity, and elite immunity, and exposes how the rich live by a completely different set of rules. Tonight, we're not speculating. We're following the money, the documents, and the patterns. And the picture that emerges is disturbing. Part 1. The impossible rise of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein started as a nobody, a failed college dropout, a high school teacher with no advanced degrees, no proven financial genius. Yet somehow, almost overnight, he became the private banker to billionaires, royalty, and presidents. No transparent hedge fund, no public track record, no clear explanation, just money. Endless money. Epstein didn't behave like a financier. He behaved like a gatekeeper, a man who collected people the way others collect leverage. Part 2. The crimes hiding in plain sight. By the early 2000s, police in Florida were flooded with reports. Girls, some as young as 14, described being paid for massages that turned sexual. They described recruitment by other girls, grooming, abuse, fear. This wasn't rumor. This was sworn testimony. Yet in 2008, Epstein walked away with one of the most disgraceful plea deals in U.S. history. No serious prison, no federal charges, no naming of accomplices. The message was clear. Power protects its own. Intro. The case that would not die. This story isn't just about one man. It's about power. It's about silence. And it's about how some of the most influential people on Earth were drawn into a shadowy world where accountability seemed optional. In August 2019, billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in a federal jail cell while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. The official ruling? Suicide. But Epstein's death didn't close the case. It opened the floodgates. Because Epstein didn't operate alone, he didn't build his influence in isolation, and he didn't gain access to the world's most powerful people by accident. Tonight we break down, step by step, who Jeffrey Epstein was, how his network worked, which celebrities and elites were connected by evidence, and what is proven, alleged, and still unknown. Part 1. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein was not born wealthy. He started as a high school math teacher in the 1970s. How he transitioned from that job to managing billions of dollars remains one of the biggest mysteries of his life. By the 1980s and 90s, Epstein had reinvented himself as a financial fixer for the ultra-rich, a man who handled money for billionaires, had private jets, multiple mansions, owned a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Epstein didn't just sell financial services, he sold access. Access to politicians, access to royalty, access to scientists, celebrities, and global elites. The hidden crimes. Behind closed doors, Epstein was running something far darker. From the early 2000s onward, multiple underage girls accused Epstein of sexual abuse, trafficking, being recruited, groomed, and passed along to others. In 2008, Epstein was arrested in Florida, but instead of facing serious prison time, he received a highly controversial plea deal. 13 months in jail, work release for up to 12 hours a day, and immunity for unnamed co-conspirators. This deal was approved by federal prosecutors and later described by a judge as illegal and improper. For years, Epstein walked free. The Black Book and flight logs. When the case resurfaced in 2019, investigators uncovered key evidence. 1. Epstein's Black Book, a private contact book containing politicians, business tycoons, Hollywood celebrities, royal figures. Important, being listed does not prove criminal behavior. It proves association, nothing more. 2. Flight logs, the Lolita Express. Epstein owned private jets that flew New York, Florida, Paris, his private island. Flight logs show many famous names aboard these planes. Again, this proves travel, not guilt. But it raised serious questions. Why were so many powerful people flying repeatedly with Epstein? Celebrities and elites. Who was connected? Let's be precise. Proven and convicted. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's closest associate, convicted in 2021 for sex trafficking and recruiting minors, sentenced to 20 years in prison. Her conviction confirms Epstein ran a trafficking operation, and he did not act alone. Documented associations, no criminal convictions. The following individuals have been publicly documented as having connections to Epstein through photos, flight logs, or meetings. None have been convicted of crimes related to Epstein. Prince Andrew, UK royal family, accused in a civil lawsuit, case settled without admission of guilt, removed from royal duties. Bill Clinton, former U.S. president, appeared on flight logs, denies knowledge of crimes. Donald Trump, former U.S. president, social acquaintance in the 1990s, later banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. Bill Gates met Epstein after his conviction in 2008, publicly stated it was a mistake. Hollywood figures, CEOs, academics appeared in Epstein's contact network, no criminal charges filed. Key point: association is not evidence of abuse, but the pattern of access remains troubling. The island and allegations. Epstein's private island, often called Little St. James, became central to survivor testimony. Victims described being flown in as minors, being abused by Epstein, being pressured to entertain other powerful men. Some alleged names have never been charged. Some accusations remain sealed or unverified. Courts require evidence, witness testimony, due process. Many victims say justice was shortchanged by Epstein's death. Epstein's death and the unanswered questions. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. Cameras malfunctioned, guards fell asleep, the DOJ ruled it a suicide, but public trust collapsed because Epstein was about to testify, could have named co-conspirators, and took secrets to the grave. To this day, no full client list has been released, no broad conspiracy charges followed. Conclusion: why this case still matters. This case isn't about gossip, it's about how wealth shields predators, how power delays justice, and how victims are silenced. Jeffrey Epstein is gone, but the system that protected him is still very much alive, and until transparency replaces secrecy, this story will never truly end. The question isn't whether powerful people were involved, the question is how many will ever be held accountable. The machinery of access. Epstein didn't hide. He flaunted. Private jets, nicknamed the Lolita Express, a Manhattan mansion, a New Mexico ranch, and a private Caribbean island, off limits to authorities. His black book read like a global power directory. Presidents, princes, CEOs, scientists, Hollywood royalty. This wasn't coincidence. This was network building. Epstein didn't just know powerful people, he made himself useful to them, and that's where the danger begins. Celebrities, politicians, and documented connections. Let's be crystal clear. Being connected to Epstein does not automatically mean criminal guilt, but repeated contact after his crimes were known demands scrutiny. Prince Andrew, accused by a survivor in civil court, claimed he didn't sweat due to a medical condition, settled the case without admitting guilt, lost royal status and public duties. Royal protection didn't erase public suspicion. Bill Clinton appeared multiple times on Epstein flight logs, denies knowledge of abuse. But the question remains, why was a former U.S. president flying repeatedly with a convicted sex offender? Donald Trump socialized with Epstein in the 1990s, later cut ties and publicly criticized him. This shows something important. Some people walked away, others didn't. Bill Gates met Epstein years after his conviction, acknowledged it as a grave mistake. Why would one of the most powerful men on earth meet a known sex offender at all? No charges, no convictions, but the pattern is impossible to ignore. Ghislaine Maxwell, proof this was a network. In 2021, the silence cracked. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted, not for rumors, not for gossip, for sex trafficking minors. Her conviction confirmed Epstein had help. Girls were recruited. Abuse was organized. This wasn't a lone wolf, it was a system, and systems don't exist without protection. The island, the victims, and the names that never came. Survivors described being flown to Epstein's island, being assaulted, being offered to other men. Some names were whispered, some accusations sealed, some cases quietly dropped. Then Epstein died, no testimony, no cross-examination, no full exposure. Convenient or catastrophic? Epstein's death and the cover-up question. Epstein was on suicide watch, in a high-security jail, surrounded by failures. Cameras off, guards asleep, records incomplete. Officials said, nothing to see here. The public said, we don't believe you. Because Epstein's death didn't feel like closure, it felt like containment. Conclusion. Why this terrifies the elite. This case scares powerful people for one reason. It proves the system can be exposed, not by conspiracy theories, but by documents, victims, and court records. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't an anomaly. He was a symptom. And until power stops protecting predators, there will be another Epstein. Different name, same silence. Justice delayed is justice denied. And in this case, justice may have been buried with the truth. Final CTA. This is Warscope. We don't follow headlines. We follow what they don't want you asking. Subscribe, because some wars aren't fought with weapons. They're fought with secrets. This was never just one man. Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but the scandal he left behind is very much alive. They told us the story was over. They told us justice had been served. They told us this was just one wealthy predator who took his own life. That was a lie. Because Epstein didn't rise alone. He didn't traffic minors alone. And he didn't protect himself alone. This case pulls back the curtain on power, celebrity, and elite immunity, and exposes how the rich live by a completely different set of rules. Tonight, we're not speculating. We're following the money, the documents, and the patterns. And the picture that emerges is disturbing. Part 1. The impossible rise of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein started as a nobody, a failed college dropout, a high school teacher with no advanced degrees, no proven financial genius. Yet somehow, almost overnight, he became the private banker to billionaires, royalty, and presidents. No transparent hedge fund, no public track record, no clear explanation, just money. Endless money. Epstein didn't behave like a financier. He behaved like a gatekeeper, a man who collected people the way others collect leverage. Part 2. The crimes hiding in plain sight. By the early 2000s, police in Florida were flooded with reports. Girls, some as young as 14, described being paid for massages that turned sexual. They described recruitment by other girls, grooming, abuse, fear. This wasn't rumor. This was sworn testimony. Yet in 2008, Epstein walked away with one of the most disgraceful plea deals in U.S. history. No serious prison, no federal charges, no naming of accomplices. The message was clear. Power protects its own.